You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. Listen, if you have joined Recovered Life for any period of time and listened to the shows, you know we talk about adversity sometimes in recovery, handling hard things. And divorce, well, that could be one of the hardest things that you handle in recovery. I'm so pleased to invite my good buddy, Chris Ingram, onto the show. And he's going to talk about his experience with divorce, recovery, and how he moved forward. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, Damon. I've actually been very excited about this. I've had some recent events happen, and I know I need to talk more about this. This is a traumatic, what ended up being a very traumatic event for myself and my son. So it's not an easy topic to discuss, especially not in detail, but there's an opportunity for healing among many other things.
Well, you know what? This show is all about, Chris, living your best recovered life. That's what this is all about. That's why I'm doing this. And, part of recovery is getting sober. It is, obviously. We're not denying it's that whole, oh my gosh, I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink like other people. I'm now going to get sober. But then most of recovery isn't that experience. Most of recovery is how do you stay sober when you're dealing with with life on life's terms, which could be really rough sometimes. And just to give you props, everybody, for listening, Chris is the real deal. He's been sober, 19 years as of last week? So he walks the walk, talks the talk, and I've seen him do it, and I've watched him go through this experience, and he was so nice to jump onto the show, this recording with us on the Recovered Life TV, to really talk about his experience, because I will say, Chris, your divorce experience was not like normal, a normal divorce. It was quite traumatic. Let's jump into the first part of this, picking that person. Were you sober? Were you not sober? Give us a little bit of background about, how that whole relationship began.
Okay. Yeah, I was in Los Angeles working in as a production designer, art department dog, so a scenic painter. She was a producer, so we met in the industry, so to speak, but behind the camera. We worked on several projects together. Eventually got married. I was not sober at any of this time. And she did not drink and use like I did. She had her own agenda, as it turns out. But when we got married, that on our wedding night was the last time I ever smoked pot to this day. So that was June 17, 1995. I haven't smoked pot since. She didn't want to have anything to do with me on our own wedding night. And had actually consulted her friend, who was an attorney, to see if she could get an annulment. So that bodes real well about a long-term relationship.
So it didn't start off well. So what you're saying is it wasn't a match made in heaven right from the beginning.
No, it wasn't. No, I don't even know if it was a match that made a necessity or anything. It was just something that, well, who knows? I don't know. At the time, it seemed like love, right? At the time, it seemed like I was being cared for and cared about. And there was other things that attracted me to her. It was I could look back on it now and say her line of bullshit was very productive for her. She was successful in bullshitting people. She bullshitted me. She bullshitted herself, and she was really good at it. Being a TV producer on her end, she even got a job one time where she was sitting with an executive producer just by chance on an airline flight. And he said, I'm gonna bring you into this TV show because I like your line of bullshit. That's actually what he said to her. And then shortly thereafter, she was chasing OJ around the courthouse saying, "Where's the bag, OJ? Or Mr. Shapiro? Mr. Shapiro, where's the bag?" Remember they couldn't find the bag that was supposedly OJ was carrying around on the night. Anyway, but I stopped. I didn't keep smoking pot or drinking, and I went dry for. I say dry because I didn't use a program or 12 steps or anything. I just would, looking back on it, I refer to it as white knuckled sobriety because I just stayed away from things. This is not what I don't drink. People would offer me. It's like, no, I don't drink any longer. Let's get high. I don't smoke anymore. I can't really say they were great years of my life. But on our seventh wedding anniversary, I was commuting back and forth between Los Angeles and Orange County because I worked in Orange County. And I thought, well, I'm just going to have a drink. And I stopped off at a Chinese restaurant, no, a Thai restaurant, and had a Chinese beer. And within a matter of 3 years, I was doing coke off someone's ass and sleeping around, and the crazy stuff just picked up right where I left off again.
So just so at the beginning, Chris, like it's interesting because you're not, physically sober, you're sober.
hmm.
And then you go for 7 years. What was the big, what do you think that decision was? Was it the relationship? Maybe you credit for like, hey, I'm going to try to give this a shot. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to be sober. What was the decision? Because most people don't say, oh, I'm just going to get sober, especially in a relationship. Like they don't like make both those decisions at one time typically.
Well, it turns out that she didn't like my best man a lot, and she thought he was the cause of getting me high. She didn't have any idea that I like to get high. It was, she wouldn't sleep with me if I was high. And so that was the driving force. Like, hey, I want to get laid, so I'm going to stop using.
So you were dysfunctional. She was dysfunctional. It was just a really dysfunctional mess. You go 7 years. Now you're into this. Now, this is when I first heard the story. And I thought we've got to get on the show. One of the things I love about you, Chris, is that, you're brutally honest. Like you will, you will actually say exactly what your role in it was. Look, leading up to, obviously you're saying, because I don't want this to be looking at like we're bashing her or anything like that, because that's not really what this is about. This episode is about, it's how to, handle really rough, hard things like divorce in recovery. You're admitting you were super dysfunctional during this time,
Oh,
doing
100%.
a bunch of stuff you shouldn't be doing. Well, so what happened? You start drinking again. Obviously that didn't turn out well.
No, it didn't. No. And that's when her physical abuse against me started, because I would drink and she would get upset with me and like clench her fists and start hitting me. And that happened a few times. And the first I remember that it was a shocking to me when she first did it. I stood back, and my ability to get really wasted was off in a different scale than most people. I can admit that, but I wasn't even messed up. I had been drinking, but I wasn't even messed up. And she got really upset with me for what I thought was for my drinking. But who knows what it was about? Could have been about anything. But um, uh, it didn't make a difference. But yeah, things got worse. I think that's what you asked before we go down that rabbit hole. Things did not get better. We thought having a kid. Well, here's the thing: is that she had told me that she couldn't get pregnant, but I just found out that was another manipulation tactic. We did have a boy together. He's 26 now. He's actually 2 years sober, so I'm incredibly proud of him. He's insanely successful in his career too. But that's after a lot of work based on the trauma that we haven't even talked about yet, which I think we'll get to.
we taught, and the reason why I wanted to do this is because you are very honest, and you're also very honest about your participation in all this. Is that the whole picking thing? Like, they always say that the picking gene for alcoholics is broken, especially if you're out using and you're picking. That sometimes the reason why we pick certain people is not what we think, right? Like there's something behind the reason that we pick other people. Did you have any idea that when you pick this person and they picked you, that this probably wasn't really a good mix?
I'll answer it a different way. Is that she made me? I thought that she thought I was special. I thought and felt that she appreciated who I am for all my quirks, and I later find out it was because it was easy to manipulate me to do certain things. But um, ask me again. What was the original question? It was
when you picked, was there any kind of sign back then? Did you
Yeah.
say, maybe this isn't the best person for me?
Mm-hmm. I knew that I wanted to, okay. So I had a driving force to get married younger. And so I was going to give this a shot and have children. My goal was to have children because the age differentiation between my father and myself was too extreme. I don't think he related to me. I thought it was an age problem, happened to be a dad son problem. And but I wanted to be closer to the age of my children so that I could actually relate to them. It turns out, regardless of our age, we can end up relating to our kids quite closely if we listen to them. But maybe that's another episode. And so I was driven to connect with somebody, and she was answering all the right questions. And even when she was lying, and I knew she was lying, it didn't matter because she was giving me the response that I wanted to hear. I think that's pretty
So,
significant.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's like not being able to really internally listen. And of course, when you're also mired in addiction too,
Yeah,
your thinking's not totally right. You're thinking
no,
about when you're going to use again, how you're going to stop using during key times,
yeah.
especially like, how am I not going to screw this up? So you start drinking again, you're commuting back and forth. You've obviously not done the right thing, right? You've really gone off the rails. What
Mm.
happened? If I'm doing the math here, if you've been sober 19 years, you must have decided at some point, that's it. I gotta, to save this marriage, I gotta stop using.
It was to save myself. The moment of clarity that made me stop drinking was that I saw another person that I saw a reflection of myself in another person during a commute on a train ride, and he looked like somebody who'd life just beaten to shit. He was on just had it was just an afternoon for him, but he had reached for like 3 bottles of Heineken. And I saw him in the bar car of the Amtrak train, and I had 1 bottle of Heineken. But I saw such a mirror image of myself in him that it was shocking to me that said, that's you that you're looking at. And looking back at it, I'm sure he was physically even there. It wasn't like some manifestation that I dreamt up. But my understanding and the the moment that I saw myself in him, I realized I have a problem. I need to stop. And it was a personal thing. It really had nothing to do with my relationship or my son. It was, in fact, neither of those things got me sober. Having a kid did not get me sober. Being in a relationship did not get me sober. No, it was having a clear understanding of really who I am and knowing that there's an opportunity to change that. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had been toying around with going to a recovery house or a detox, um, but couldn't find the right place, couldn't take that step, and started going to AA meetings,
And she
the
was
12
pretty
step
supportive
meetings.
of that, right? She was pretty supportive of that, of you pursuing recovery, right?
That's a good question. Um, I don't think she believed anything. Well, okay, so she was a fantastic liar. And and I am, as an alcoholic and an addict, I'm a fantastic liar if I want to use that superpower. So she probably felt it was another angle that I was trying. Maybe if I get sober, then I can manipulate or do something. She saw the entire world through those glasses. I think she was trying to place that in her terms of understanding. In being supportive, she did not say don't fucking do that, because she didn't drink and use like I did. We didn't really party together, because she would turn it off and I would keep going. So um, I know that things got better. There was a lot less anger in the house when I started going to 12-step meetings, and that was very much appreciative. Um, and but if we're getting into the territory of what happened after I got sober, yeah, if we do the math again, there was a number of years there where her manipulation and her issues continued to escalate, and she had some physical health problems occur. Um, but even looking back now, I don't know how legitimate some of those were. Um, Only the stuff that I was in the actual doctor's offices that I can attest to. Because she really was a professional liar. And I say professional because she would get people to pay her to do things. Um, and that's a few other stories. She ended up, like, there was an insurance scam that she was part of for one of those reality adventure movies that when you sit in a theater and you take a boat ride somewhere. Well, they dropped the camera into the ocean, and she was part of an insurance scam to get them to pay for the entire production. So she was really good at lying and manipulating people.
Typically in recovery, you hear, I've known a lot of people that have come in, and both men and women who have really, they got sober, meaningful sobriety when they were already in the middle of a marriage,
Mm,
and end up getting a divorce because they realize that they're with somebody that they have no idea even how they got there, right? Literally. And a lot of it, and this women too, like I would say overwhelming amount of women wake up and realize, like, wow, this is like not this is not sane, right? This is what I'm living is not sane, and I can't continue to stay sober and still be in this relationship. I
correct.
know for you, and most people get out of that, and it's traumatic and it's very tough and it challenges your sobriety. I can see that with people that I know that have gone through this. But with you, this went for a whole other level. Could we jump into the
Mhm.
breakup? Because after years of being married to this person and kind of seeing that from your own words, that this just was not a match made in heaven, and all of these signs that really kind of challenged your day-to-day sanity,
Mhm.
right? You decide that you're going to, after seeing some things that had happened with your family, that you're going to make a move and get separated. I'd like to jump into that and how
Yeah.
you kind of dealt with that in your recovery, and you know, how did you deal with that day to day? Because it was pretty traumatic, as you'll share with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the reason I wanted to do this was it's an opportunity for me to realize things and hear myself talk about stuff that I hadn't even discussed. I'll answer the earlier question that you asked me, and then I'll get into some of the events that occurred. You asked me, like, why I got together with her, why I stuck with her, and relaying that story about her insurance scam reminded me that life with her, I was exciting. There was always something at play. And when I was drinking and using, that was part of the excitement, is to be a part of, whether it was criminal activity or manipulation or lying for to benefit financially. That was excitement that was in my um, drinking and using her life, and that excitement continued without the drugs and alcohol when I was with her, to many an extent. It was turned down. It wasn't as turned up as when I was drinking and using, but it was still present. And so leaving her would have meant leaving that excitement behind as well. Um, what actually happened was, yeah, things really started getting rocky. My son was becoming a teenager, and they were constantly at odds. He didn't feel safe in the home. I find out years later why, because there was more than emotional abuse. There was also sexual abuse going on between them, which devastated me. And um, because I would travel for work, there were opportunities there that she took advantage of, and would put him in precarious situations where if he told dad, then she would turn around and tell on him for something he'd done. So it was crazy, horrible shit she was doing to him, and they were at odds constantly. He never wanted to be in the same room with her. And we're talking over months and months. This isn't just like a bad weekend. This is an extended period of time. And so he's in his teens, and even though she's got some health issues, she's not addressing anything. She's using what her health diagnosis was as an off as a means of continued manipulation. And you can't leave me, you can't do these different things because I'm going to die. Well, you're not helping yourself. So we had a sort of a family meeting, come to Jesus, which basically said, you need to do, and I broke it down. There's like 3 things you need to do for yourself. I'm telling her this stuff in front of our son. You need to do this, this, and this. And it was like, work, get help, have a support team, whatever it might be. And she denied, kind of denied she had a problem. I find out later that she's also using during this period, and that also continued afterwards. In fact, the last time I ever saw her, she was smoking crack on a sidewalk with somebody. But after that family meeting and that denial on her part, within a week, she was calling the cops on us. I say us because it's both me and my son. And she's sort of fabricating that these things happen. I know that I need to get my son out of that situation because it's not a safe place for him. It's interesting because I'm not thinking it's not a safe place for me. I'm only considering my son. Which I think we can get back to a little bit why I thought that way. But and I consult a couple of divorce attorneys. This one, I go and meet with him. I go to his office and I tell him about this event that occurred when she calls the cops. And he, as most divorce attorneys do, they say, like, is this salvageable? That's always the first question. Do we need to go through this? Because it's a messy process. And he's got his folder on his desk. And when I tell him that she called the cops, he looks at me square in the eye and he closes the folder on his desk and moves it to the side. And he says, you can't go back to that home tonight. If you go back to that place, you will, the next time you and I speak, you will be behind bars and you'll be asking me to help post your bail. And he says, I don't know you from Adam, but if what you're going to do is you're going to contact your son, and the 2 of you are going to contact the police and have them standing by, and you'll go and pick up whatever you can carry, but you can't ever go back there again. And that was again, this is all in sobriety that this is happening. And it's an eye-opening moment for me because here's a professional who doesn't know me. And suddenly he, his heart opens and all the red flags went up. He told me later it was based on his experience because he had that happen where people went back and they did call him from behind bars. So I'm driving in the car from the attorney's office and I'm calling my son on his cell phone. And I said, are you home? I said, don't go home. Are you home? He's like, no, I'm on my way. I'm almost there. And I said, well, don't go inside. Meet me in this community room. We lived in a condominium. We rented a condo. And I said, well, we're going to think about what it is you want to take with you because we're going to only carry whatever we can pack in the car. And we're never going back there again. And there was a pause on his end. Imagine receiving a phone call like that from your parent, from your sober parent. And he says, okay, Dad. And then I said, I'll call you when I get to the community room. So we got there and the police hadn't arrived yet. And we're sitting outside and we're waiting because, Los Angeles Police Department, they're so quick with things like this. We ended up going in and grabbing things, whatever we wanted to bug out with. I call it the bug out, the great bug out of 2016, I think it was. But and then when we're in the car, I just broke down crying, like weeping. And although it was in between calls because I was reaching out to friends to say, like, my son and I need a couch to crash on. And we just, even if it's just for tonight, we need a place to stay. And that put not only me in a very, I've never had so much shame wash over me. To feel that emotional impact of a sensation that I never had at that extreme level was pretty significant. In 12-step programs, you always hear about people saying, well, I hit my rock bottom when I did this. I hit my, I was at the lowest time in my life when I did that. that this is the lowest time in my life, and it's in sobriety. And so yeah, my son and I were homeless for a short period of time. I did have a friend open up his house to me, his 1 bedroom apartment, and we slept on his couch for a little while, and then but yeah, so we navigated that whole area, and I held down a job, and at the same, it was a like just a, I don't know, perfect storm. I don't want to be all dramatic and stuff like that, but I was going through an audit with the IRS at the same time. I was commuting to Thousand Oaks for a job. My son's trying to graduate from high school. We don't have a regular roof that we're going to sleep under every evening. And I've got someone draining my bank account because we still have joint accounts. So it was a lot to deal with in sobriety.
You know, Chris,
Um,
jumping back to it, one of the things
yeah.
that we always talk about after we're sober is, when you first get sober, a lot of times that you hear is what's your role in it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so helpful because many times
Mhm.
as alcoholics, we play a huge role in these
Mhm.
things. But I found that sometimes without additional help, whether that be therapy or other things that you're going through, or a really good support group, a lot of
Mhm.
the times what we could do is replace that, what's my role in it, with really confusing boundaries and
Mhm.
understanding that sometimes people's inappropriate behavior is inappropriate, and that
Mhm.
yes, you might play a role in why you're there, but you don't necessarily have to play a role in fixing it, and you might not be able to fix it, right? And that's
Mhm.
one of the things that I remember you sharing about, is that realization when you're in sobriety, but really don't have the solution to fix it. And being sober isn't enough. Just being sober isn't going to fix it. I mean, how did that feel when you were in the middle of that? Did you know that, hey, as long as I stay sober, I'm going to
Mhm.
be able to get through this?
Well, being sober helped me realize you have to take care of what's in front of you, and you take care of that thing first. I wasn't future tripping. I wasn't thinking about what's going to happen at the end of the week, because I was living in the moment at that time, from moment to moment. I don't, um, what was the question again? I'm
We're
sorry.
talking, well, we were talking a little bit about boundaries. We were talking about understanding in sobriety about how boundaries, that you have to have
Hmm.
good boundaries and understand when you're in situations that aren't good for you, and
Yeah.
understand that you can't change everything. And just being sober doesn't mean you're going to be able to change it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I learned from this exercise is that um, you can't. I learned a bunch of sayings. One of them was, sometimes the best action is to take none, because these things you have to live through, as painful as that might be. Um, and if that comes from what you're talking about, which is there's a sense of powerlessness in trauma that is very similar to a powerlessness over alcohol and drugs that I see. By the time a traumatic event occurs, you're already enveloped in it. It's almost as if a tidal wave has washed over you, and um, there's no fix. Obviously, there's no fixing a tidal wave. It's a natural occurrence. There's no fixing an earthquake. You can only have your response system, and in this instance, it was like a support team. Um, that brought me to a whole new level of acceptance. And you're talking about my part. It was more an opportunity to find out who I am, because I slowly started to peel back that onion of what put you in this situation to begin with. I just learned something now as we were talking, right? That the thing that attracted me to her was her chaotic manipulation and adventures that were often illegal. But um, um, oh, fuck, I lost my train of thought again.
That's all right.
But here,
So
this is why, like, when I start thinking about the times that I was with her, it's like there is a sort of a, that's what trauma does, right? It clouds around you from time to time. I don't necessarily want to drink, but I want to be able to share and communicate with people about it.
so how did this all end up? I mean,
Mm,
the interesting thing is when you watch this go down,
mm,
and I know you had a really good support group, you have really good sobriety, you were doing the work. which I think was a big part of this, of why you got out of this. But as the slings and arrows came, and it really ended up getting worse, to be honest with you, you ended up being able to escape this, and you were able to escape it sober, which I think was very, very interesting, because I've seen a lot of people with either traumatic relationship events like divorce, cheating, breakups, and money, those things, and jobs, right? Status and prestige. Those are the things that take people out. They take the best people out. The people who have really good sobriety sometimes really can't handle the level of pain that it takes them to. What was one thing, Chris, looking back on it, when you were in the heart of it, when you're thinking, man, I don't know if this is going to turn out, and, knowing your kid and watching him grow up and, be so successful, I know you had a lot of worry and like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do all this? Right. Cause your mom, your dad, your everything provider, your everything all at one time. Looking back on this, what do you think your biggest fear was during this period of time?
That my son would not recover, that my son would not make it out. So my son has had suicidal ideation since he was in second grade, because it turns out there was sexual abuse going on in the public schools that he found out about. I mean, he was able to admit openly through years of therapy. And he has a tremendous therapist who's actually works with Marines. So my son's been diagnosed with PTSD, and he's done a tremendous amount of work with that and had great success. But so that was my biggest fear, is that my son would not come out. And when you said, as you were, visually, I can remember where I was at certain times with my son, with in my job during that period of trauma and such, and who I talked to, and some of the glimmers of hope that occurred. But we were in like a Target, I think it was, and my son was curled up in the fetal position on the floor in between the aisles, weeping and shaking, and that was really, it was a low point for sure. And so that was, and in that moment, there were questions like, shit, he may not make it out. Shit, I may not make it out. And even though we're physically away from that, the residue of what occurred is still all over us. And how do we shake that? Does a drink start sounding good around then? It would need to be a lot more than a drink, right? It would need to be, what's the saying? I can't take a drink, I break out into a bad case of cocaine and hookers, or something like that. It would have to be something pretty spectacular, and just drinking and using wouldn't have been enough to if I was really looking for an escape through substances and such. I already knew at that point, I had enough sobriety to know that it wouldn't have worked. So I don't think I ever thought about a drink during that period. There are other times since that I've thought about a drink, it has to do with, so on top of all that trauma of divorce, when loss comes, right? When you have a friend who's on the verge of dying that you've known for years, really close friends, or people who do pass away, a lot of that trauma comes back, undealt with trauma. So again, I like this opportunity to be able to share this shit with you, because not only is it good to talk about, but I start to realize certain things. Loss of a friend is sucks. Yeah.
What do you think the biggest lesson that you learned from this about yourself and about your recovery is from this? What do you think the big aha moment has been for you?
Yeah, I don't know it. I don't know. That's the biggest answers, is like if I was when people ask me for answers, is my sometimes my best response is, I mean, I might have an educated guess, but I don't know. I don't know. When my son and I have a small Kia Soul packed up with everything that we can carry, including like 3 volumes of tax documents and a printer and a computer and stuff, that what are we going to sleep tonight, Dad? I don't know. I'm commuting to work And am I ever going to love again? I don't know. Is my son going to make it through his teens? I don't know. Will you survive? Will you go back to using? I don't know. For me, that's, I guess it does culminate. It allows me to know my limitations. And my response to understanding that I have a limitation can be one of several things. I can reach out and talk to someone about it and be honest that I'm going through the ringer right now. I'm not today because I have friends like you and other instances of things coming into my life. And the one thing I do really enjoy about 12-step is I get to watch people trudge crazy shit too, you know? And so when I was drinking and using, I always could tell you how I was going to feel and what was going to happen. But without all that, I have no idea. But you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm totally comfortable with not knowing.
Yeah. I think that, not knowing and just getting through it sometimes is what you have to do in hard things, because I think the not knowing brings the anxiety. But I think going through these situations, realizing I'm still here at the end of it all, I'm still here, is really sometimes that big revelation. It's like, oh my God, I'm still here. I'm still sober. I'm still doing the thing. I'm still alive. I could still fight another day. Right.
Sure.
And just knowing that is sometimes, it's great, because it knows that you can go through hard things. In conclusion here, Chris, because I know that there's people probably listening to this and they're maybe going through something really, really hard. And maybe they're going through divorce, right? And they're thinking, you know what, this is going to be the end of me and it's going to be the end of my sobriety. What would be your message to them?
It's not the end, plain and simple. It's not the end of you. It's not the end of your sobriety. And I would challenge the thinking that says you really know what you're talking about when you're looking at yourself in such with such demise. The world will give you the world itself will illuminate real beauty and understanding when you continue to be present. I had an opportunity to help a friend move while I was going through all this trauma. And so we're packing boxes and such. They lived in LA for a long time. They're moving to the South. They're moving out to Georgia. And as I'm packing my boxes, I realized this is a couple that loves each other unconditionally. And me being around that reminded me that just because I went through some shit doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean that you can't love again. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have a wonderful relationship. My partner and I now have a fantastic home. we go to Dodger games. We have gardens, and we, as I mentioned, my son and I have a fantastic relationship. The other party that we talked about for a lot of this episode didn't make it. I did eventually get that phone call from the city of Los Angeles. Hello, is this Chris Ingram? Yes. Did you happen to know this person? Oh, yes, I've been waiting for this phone call. So she's no longer around. And it was right when we had that meeting, sort of family meeting. She wasn't going to make it, but she was not going to take us with her either. So we're the lucky ones.
We are the lucky ones. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it. Guys, we're going to put some information, Chris's Instagram, in the show notes. And as always, you could also comment on Recovered Life TV. We'll see you guys there. Go out and live your best recovered life.
Hey, if you like this episode, think about supporting us by becoming a Recovered Life Plus member. At Recovered Life TV, we're not just delivering premium recovery resources. We're empowering you with the knowledge and tools that make a real difference in the quality of your recovery. By subscribing, you gain access to ad-free content, expert insights, exclusive video and audio segments, special projects, plus so much more, all while supporting our mission to spread the recovery message far and wide. Whether you're seeking to deepen your understanding or stay updated on the latest addiction and mental health recovery trends, Recovered Life Plus is for you. Subscribe now and start living your best recovered life. Just go to recoveredlife.tv and become a Plus member today.